part two of the Cultural Revolution video. I want you to imagine if you went down to the grocery store somewhere and there was this huge display of you and a poster basically criticizing you, saying that you're un-American. Perhaps if this was happening like in the 50s or something in America, it would be saying that you were a communist. And this is similar to what was happening in China in the late 60s in the Cultural Revolution, only opposite, of course. A period of almost like a witch hunt against anyone following any sort of capitalist road that was similar to McCarthyism in America, but to a much, much more greater extent, and extending not just in the political realm, but to sort of the social realm as well. So that any sort of accusations of you following any capitalist ways could lead to intense violence, in some cases even death. So a lot of the deaths that were resulting from the Cultural Revolution were not necessarily state-sanctioned violence, although there certainly was that, and there were public executions. But mostly, a lot of the violence was happening among the people, and it was extremely dangerous to really voice your opinion on anything because it seemed like it could always be twisted. And in a lot of cases, some people, if you had a sort of enemy in your locality, just to say that, point out their flaws, or that maybe they did something that was following the capitalist road. So on these posters that were publicized, a variety of things could have been in there. They could have been something that you had written in the past that maybe was critical of Mao. It could have been, certainly, if you had any sort of support for Chiang Kai-shek and the nationalists, the group that Mao had defeated in 1949, Mao and the communists had defeated, that would certainly get you in trouble. Any connections with Western countries, whether it be Britain or the United States, Japan, although not technically a Western country, but certainly in the East, but an enemy of the Chinese communists. Chiang Kai-shek had fled to Taiwan, so any connection with people in Taiwan at that point, or at least with the nationalists there, would have gotten you in deep trouble, not so much just with the sort of communist leadership, but with the people as well. So it really creates this hysteria. For one of the people, for example, Deng Xiaoping's son, who Deng Xiaoping would later become the leader of China, but he has sort of represented this kind of moderate view on things, and maybe sort of slowing the revolution down a little bit. But Deng Xiaoping's son was literally thrown out of a second-story window and became a paraplegic after this. So this is that's just one example of the intense violence that was going on in China at that time. This was really, in my estimation, maybe the craziest period in human history, at least in sort of more recent history, aside from perhaps world wars. But the violence was so intense. A lot of the estimates, they vary so greatly, and largely because this sort of restriction on research and everything that you still have in China. But the very, very minimal is around 400,000 deaths during this period. Now, when I say this period, it's really the revolution, Cultural Revolution, is 68 to Mao's death in 76, but it's really mostly over by the late 60s, in 68 and 69. That's the really 66 to 69 is the most intense period of the Cultural Revolution. And, some estimates put the deaths at 1 million, some put it even at 5 million, even seen some scholarly estimates at 10 million. But even if you took the sort of the 400,000 number, that is how many Americans died in World War II, roughly. So you're talking about even the very lowest estimate would be all of the American deaths in World War II. And this is in a short period, and of course it's all internal killing, killing of their own people. So this is one of the reasons why, in my personal belief, that Mao Zedong is the most powerful person in world history. Because when you think about the vast numbers of people that he sort of pushed, and it kind of got more in their minds than many other political leaders in the past. So the Cultural Revolution, the legacy of it is that for a long period in Chinese history, people were really scared to become involved, to sort of speak out. And this was challenged, and we'll talk about some of these other things with the Tiananmen Square massacre. That, but the legacy, again, with the Cultural Revolution is that it created this fear not only of the government but also of other people within their society, which is really an example of the extreme power that Mao had over the hearts and minds of the people in China. Have a good one.